Hello there, welcome back to another Cloud with Chris weekly vlog. You're with me, Chris Reddington, and here we talk about all things cloud. Now thank you folks for joining. We are in weekly vlog number... It's quite a few vlogs, isn't it? It's really been flying by. I've been enjoying doing these, pushing the limits, trying to do more and more each time. Just as you've probably seen if you've been watching or trying to listen in live tonight, had a few false starts here in getting going through various technical issues. We are now good to go here. So if you're new because you're watching either on LinkedIn or you're watching on Periscope, maybe you're watching on Twitch, because I do have a Twitch channel as well. I've brought together all of those pieces once again and going to be live streaming across all of those, and more on that a little bit later. But of course, if you're part of the... I'm glad to have you with me, and I will be doing my utmost best to be keeping up to date with all of the various chats that I've got going on here as well. I have them all embedded on one screen here, so we will see how that goes. Probably not well, but we will see. Before we jump in, of course, if you haven't noticed a very big difference behind me as well, I have this big green screen behind me, which you may have seen, well, seen it by not seeing it, I guess, on the channel previously, and we'll definitely be using it more in some of the live streams that I've got coming. The plan moving forward is to be doing a bit more streaming of making stuff, building stuff. That's the aim. I think something I've learned over some of my recent streams and recent content is what folks in the community like of the content I've made is when I'm building stuff, when I'm actually showing stuff being built, some of the problems I'm solving, etc. So to go alongside all of the guest episodes that I have, going to have a bit more of that really. So starting from October. So these next few weekly vlogs are going to be a little bit of test runs, dry runs for that. So you know the deal then, if you have listened to this before. If not, let me run you through it. What we do in these sessions is a walkthrough of the Azure blogs, the latest Azure updates, the Azure DevOps blog updates, the GitHub blog updates, Cloud with Chris updates, and then we're going to have a little bit of a special topic for this session as well, so more on that one later. But let's go ahead and bring us across into the screen here. So first off, we're going to take a look at the Azure blogs posts from this week. So the first one is about 4 ways that AI, computer vision, and related technologies expand IoT solutions. So interesting particular post here. It talks through some of these common ways, for example, improving IoT-enabled applications by using things like AI and computer vision. Enhancing employee safety, patient care, and customer service, reducing complexity for developers and users, and accelerating potential return on investment then as well. So good mix in there, and then that leads you then to some of the other pieces in here around a contest actually. So we always like fun prizes, so worth checking out whatever the terms and conditions are around that if you're eligible. But that was the first update there around IoT. Next up then, guarantee capacity access with an on-demand capacity reservations now in preview. So this one was quite interesting. It caught my eye earlier on in the week. You may be aware, for example, of, well, think of those scenarios where you've got a workload which is business critical, or you need to have some kind of disaster recovery, and you need to guarantee the allocation of those machines. Typically what people would do is run those in a hot kind of configuration. What's interesting about this update here is there is some guaranteed capacity access now for on-demand capacity. So if you need the capacity, you can have that on-demand capacity reservation for Azure VMs. So what it means, as it reads here, this new feature allows you to deploy and manage the compute capacity required to run Azure VMs separately from the VMs themselves. So, you know, an interesting piece there that you can protect that capacity for when you may need it. So I'm sure there'll be some pricing models there around how you claim that capacity and whatnot. But they talk about here the differences or the similarities, I suppose, between on-demand capacity reservations and reserved instances as well. Particularly the point with reserved instances, the capacity is not reserved. It's prioritized, but it's not guaranteed, as you can see on the screen here. Whereas with the on-demand capacity reservations, capacity is reserved, set aside, and going to be backed by SLAs. But no SLAs there right now because it's not generally available yet. It is still currently in preview. So this is a really interesting update when you think about things from a architectural perspective, from a non-functionals perspective. So a really great and interesting update there from the Azure team. Next up then, we've got improving availability with zone redundant storage for Azure Disk Storage here as well. So I think the clue is in the name of this one. It's kind of does what it says, I guess. Let me just check this isn't gonna... Yeah, perfect. There we go, good. So improving availability with zone redundant storage for Azure Disk Storage. As it says here, they are already providing some industry-leading percentage in terms of annual failure rates and single instance service level agreements for all disk types. And what they say here is they're going to further improve the reliability with the GA of zone redundant storage for Azure Disk Storage. So this is particularly interesting because up until now, disk storage has only had LRS capability, locally redundant storage capability. Here we go. So yeah, quite an interesting update here in terms of the replication and the guarantees that you're going to get here. They've seen strong interest, great feedback from many enterprise customers from various industries during the preview. So it's not clear actually what state this is in. I'm just trying to dig down into this. But either way, the fact that this is being thought of, that this has been announced in this blog post here, is an important one. And what they even talk about here is taking advantage of ZRS disks with multi-zone Azure Kubernetes service clusters as well. And talking about then having these active and passive kind of approaches here from a VM perspective. But what they talk about here, of course, in the AKS world, is if a zone goes down, AKS automatically failing over stateful pods to a healthy zone by detaching and attaching a ZRS disk to nodes in a healthy zone. So again, thinking of that continuity perspective, really, really great update there. Next up then, we have boosting your network security with new updates to Azure Firewall. So number of updates here, including regional expansion. So 3 new public regions, including US West 3, Geo India West, and Brazil Southeast. And that is both standard and premium firewall SKUs, which are available in those new public regions. Firewall policy support is planned to release shortly, though. And then it talks through a few different additional pieces as well. So Azure Firewall Premium SKU support for self-signed certs, which is great. Service Hub now supports availability zones. What else do we have in here? Deploy Azure Firewall without a public IP in forced tunnel mode as well. So a great set of updates there. And that is the set of Azure updates. Sorry, Azure blogs, I should say. In terms of Azure updates, that is what we're just about to jump onto here. I'm just going to rearrange a few things on my screen just to make things a little bit easier here. Okay. Right, now things are looking a little bit better here. Good. Okay, so we're going to be moving on then to the Azure updates. So what we do is every week we just have a little bit of a scan through the Azure updates, very quick fire in terms of what is going on, what is there, and then progress forwards through the rest of the updates as well. So in terms of updates going on, we have the public preview of automatic scaling with Azure Virtual Machine scale sets, flexible orchestration mode. We're just going to click into that one because there is so much more than that in this update. I caught this one a little bit earlier on in the week. So defining a VM profile and specifying instance count, automatically scaling out and scaling in based on metrics, schedule, or AI prediction, which is private preview, in-guest patching, automatic extension updates, terminate notifications, secure by default networking, lots and lots of new things in there, which is all great to see. So again, worth a quick glance if you have been looking or using, I should say, some of those VM scale sets, flexible orchestration mode pieces. On-demand capacity reservations we just talked about in the Azure Blog updates. Screen capture protection for Azure Virtual Desktop is now generally available. General availability of Azure Sphere OS version 21.09 is expected on September the 22nd. Apache Spark 3.1 for Azure Synapse Analytics is now GA. And zone redundant storage for Azure Disk Storage is now GA as well. And that is, of course, what we talked about a little bit earlier on there as well. Okay, on to the Azure DevOps blog posts for this week. So there were two updates. One, of course, from Jay Gordon, who is the regular poster from the Azure Fun Bites episodes. And what Jay talks about in this particular episode is GitHub integration with Azure and shifting left, which is a very interesting topic because it's a topic I blogged about very recently, in fact. One about shifting left with Azure DevOps, one about shifting left with GitHub as well. So they talk about DevSecOps here. This is actually with Lavanya Kasarabada, who's a senior program manager, and talking about this concept of shifting left, what DevSecOps is, and how you can go and use GitHub Actions, along with things like Azure Security Center, etc. as well. Really great session. I've seen this kind of talk track a few times now, so if you haven't seen it before, definitely worth going ahead and taking a look at that one, because there's some great insights to be learned in that one. And then next up, we have, in terms of the DevOps community roundup, managing your releases by environment using Azure DevOps YAML templates, Azure DevOps Terraform task. We have Someone Else's Cloud podcast, episode 12, Azure DevOps pipeline with Terraform infrastructure. So there's a bit of a Terraform theme there. Azure pipelines, deploy AKS with Bicep. How to scan a container for vulnerabilities and publish results as part of Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. And finally, Azure Static Web Apps custom build and deployments. So a good mix of posts there for you as well. And now then, looking at the GitHub blog. So few updates this week which are of interest. First off, GitHub security update. There are vulnerabilities in the tar and the npm CLI Arborist packages. So between July the 21st and August 13th, GitHub received some reports through one of their private security bug bounty programs that there may be some vulnerabilities there. They outline a bit more detail on what actions you should take in those blog posts. So go ahead, check out that one. An analysis on developer security researcher interactions in the vulnerability disclosure process. So if you are in the DevSecOps space and interested in some of the background research around that, again, the dynamics, it's a bit more policy-based perhaps in terms of that research. So again, if that's kind of the area you're interested in, then there's a blog post on all of that for you. Next up then, GitHub Enterprise Server 3.2 brings new color modes and added security capabilities. So indeed, if you are using GitHub Enterprise Server, the 3.2 release candidate is here for you. So definitely worth going ahead, checking that up, looking forward and starting to plan your path in terms of upgrading to the latest and greatest there as well. I've been using dark theme on GitHub for quite some time myself. I think I've got the light theme turned on right now just for streaming purposes because from an accessibility perspective, I believe light mode is actually more accessible than dark mode. If anyone can prove me wrong, let me know. But I believe I read that somewhere. GitHub Advanced Security capabilities, of course, in GitHub Enterprise Server, they're available as well. I believe that is in a beta stage right now, though. Oh, sorry, the custom patterns, I should say, is in a beta stage. I beg your pardon. What else do we have here? Verified domains feature as well. Additional pieces mentioned in here. additional improvements with GitHub Actions. I think that now introduces the concept of environments, which of course we've had for quite some time in github.com. So it's great to see GitHub Enterprise Server now have that capability as well. And of course, many, many great updates. So go ahead, if you're using GitHub Enterprise Server, go and review the latest and greatest there, because lots of great stuff for you to go and try. So then, in terms of firstly what has gone on over the past week from a Cloud with Chris perspective. Last week we had weekly vlog number 36. This was of course another of these gaming sessions. This was an Among Us session. I think there were about 5 or 6 of us playing Among Us, trying to find the imposter, trying quite frankly to multitask while doing some of that fun stuff. It was good fun. It was good fun. I'd like to see a few more people join in on the next one. We unfortunately had a few people drop out last minute, but of course these things happen, so no problems there. I would love to be able to have a bigger crowd just like we did the first time around. A lot of fun, so we'd love to have you come and join us. So if you want to get involved in that, we're going to do that once a month. Go ahead, drop me a message on Twitter, drop me a message in chat, or however you wish, and we can get you set up on the Discord server that we got going here as well. Then on Monday, I released a blog post actually in preparation for some of the stuff that I'm doing on the streaming side of things. I was doing a bit of work to set up my development environment, because I use Windows Subsystem for Linux on a daily basis. My background from university perspective was using Linux. I had my MacBook as well, so very much got used to Bash and that kind of command line. So I prefer that as my day-to-day kind of command line driver. But I was having some issues with my environment, and that's what I walked through in this post, because I wasn't getting my aliases. Oh My Posh wasn't working, and I explained what those are in this post as well, and quite frankly how I remediated those issues. Long story short, it was an issue to do with a file that was created and was taking priority, so another file with all my settings wasn't getting called, basically. That is the summary of the blog post, but I go through all the steps, how I kind of triaged it, found that, and the fix as well there. So if you've had any issues or are just interested in learning a little bit around the challenges that I encountered, etc., you can go ahead, take a look at that blog post, because it was quite a fun one to write up as well, actually. So there we go, a nice a bit hands-on one there. Then on Wednesday, had another great session here, all about migrating to the cloud. So Suzanne Tedrick we had on the show, talking about cloud adoption framework, talking about some of these considerations as you prepare to migrate. And it was interesting how long we didn't speak about migrations directly, more about the planning, the strategy, the governance, and getting yourself set up to get the right groundwork in place ahead of that migration. So great discussion, had a lot of fun. Suzanne is also a award-winning author as well, so definitely recommend you go and check her book out as well, because it talks about one of these hard issues about being a woman of color in tech, I believe was the title of the book, Woman in Color in Tech, exactly. So it's on my to-read list. I still need to go and order the book myself, but we are going to be having Suzanne come back on, hopefully, and talk about that as well. So again, great session there from Suzanne. Thank you again for joining. It was a lot of fun to record and chat with you. Then on Thursday, released another blog post, and this is a bit of a follow-up to another blog post that I had written. This one was all about using branching policies in Azure DevOps, as opposed to branch protection rules in GitHub. I was reading it as I was scrolling down the screen here, so I got a little confused myself there. But this one is more focused on the Azure repos side of things. So how you can shift left, prevent people from merging directly into master, and how you can go ahead and enforce some rules to be taken so that you can go ahead and make sure that certain checks and balances and quality gates are in place before your code reaches that production code base effectively. So running things like automated builds, having other people review your changes, all of these kind of things that we expect to happen before we have a production code base. So I talked through that. I talked through some tips and tricks, how to do that at scale across an Azure DevOps project, doing that across many repositories there. Also talk about some of the permissions that you need to think about there as well at the very upfront of the blog post there. But another fun one to write, again, quite a lengthy one, but if you like those types of blog posts where it's a little more walking through step by step some of the things that you might want to think about, let me know, because they do take a bit more effort, but I feel like they're probably some more valuable ones there. So if you agree, if you think that's the case, shout, let me know, because then I can make sure I prioritize it and get more of that out. And then finally, in terms of content that came out over the last week, Tales from the Real World, Architecting the Transformation. We, of course, had Asanka Abe-Singh back to come and talk about this topic. He previously was on talking about his kind of idea of a cell-based reference architecture and how we can kind of think about microservices. Really interesting idea. This one is almost thinking about the different layers of architecture and types of architect that we'd have in an organization, and breaking down some of those silos between the business. Really, really interesting topic here. So recommend, if you're in that architectural space, worth going ahead, tuning into that one and taking a bit of a look at that. And then next up, we have what's coming up over the next week. So, of course, you are listening to weekly vlog number 37, or you are watching it, or potentially watching it live, potentially watching it back. So in which case, thank you, whichever way you are. On Friday, then, we're going to have an episode coming out with Thomas Thornton, Tales from the Real World on DevOps. It was a great discussion with Thomas. We recorded that one last week. All about, as it says there, Tales from the Real World on DevOps. So talking through our experiences, some of those lessons learned, some of those things that we see which are pretty crucial, important as you go along your DevOps journey there. So that was a fun one to record. Thank you, Thomas, for joining. That one will be out on Friday. And then next Sunday, we will have another weekly vlog. It does say on the site it'll be a Sea of Thieves one, but from Tuesday, I'll be on leave for kind of 2 weeks roughly. So I'm probably not going to do that one because we're hoping to get a long weekend away somewhere on the weekend. So whether I even do a weekly vlog is kind of questionable at the minute. It probably will be. But I might take a little break for a week. So hopefully you all don't mind if that does happen. But it's very unlikely to be a Sea of Thieves stream. And then, of course, there'll be probably a blog post or two this week, yet to be decided on topics. But they are, of course, all in the backlog. And that's a nice little segue, because my backlog is all using GitHub Issues. And GitHub Issues, as you may have heard recently, is going through a little bit of a transformation. There is a new beta coming out for GitHub Issues. So if we look at the kind of open page, the page that is open for everyone here, really what they're talking about with GitHub Issues is a iteration, I suppose, over the current issue boards that are there today. So currently you've got boards and you may be used to that, but you can see they're going to be going down this tables route as well. So a couple of different ways that you can go and interact with those. Really interesting to see that. So what we're going to do is just take a look through how I'm actually starting to use that on Cloud with Chris. Because you can see here some of the brochureware in terms of the website, if you like, and all of this is completely representative actually of what it is for real here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just jump in. So you can see here I've got my Cloud with Chris organization. I'm on the projects tab here, and I've got my own private board, private project, I should say. So if I jump into Cloud with Chris content, you can see here that I've got my different tabs. So I've got my backlog, I've got my in progress, my stages, and a view that I was making as well. And you can see this is a nice little tabular view. It's all grouped based upon what looks like dates or milestones there, for example. And I've added all of the issues in my cloudwithchris.com repository to this project board here. And this is the thing, this project, the views that you see within it, from what I've been able to tell so far, are consistent across. So, all of the data in these views is consistent. So you can see, for example, all of these issues here are in an accepted stage. All of these issues are in a scheduled stage. We've got some which are pending release. In fact, this one has now been released, so it can now be moved over there. I did a blog on why use Azure Sentinel, which has been released here as well. And you can see here, we've now got nothing pending release. Actually, that's not strictly true. I need to go and triage my board here. So let me just, where I'm zoomed in here, I'm just struggling to get my scroll bar. There we go. So let's just go ahead, find the right one. So DevOps trends, shift left your performance tests. And there was one more, Tales from the Real World. There we go. Those three are now pending release. They have been recorded. They've all been sorted. So they're now just pending the release to go out. So that is my backlog up to date and groomed. Now what's interesting is obviously you saw me just drag and drop those across here. They're now in the pending release stage. So if we jump back and look at the September tab here, we'll be able to see that these are now in the pending release stage. So all of these pieces you can see are hanging together in terms of those updates, which is really, really nice in terms of the experience. In terms of how these views are generated, I have some customizability over it, so I can filter down on things. I can go ahead and either change that to a table or a board. I can go ahead here and select these visible fields, etc. Really, really nice. I can even group by certain things as well, depending on the view. So you can see I'm grouped by milestone right now. I can duplicate that view and then make it nice and easy to go and create a new view here as well. And this combines with all of the other features which have been really happening in that GitHub Issues space. So if I just go and open this one here, you can see, for example, that I've got an episode suggestion for Azure Governance. Now, let's say that I've got a few different tasks that I need to complete with that. So I might start making a checklist here. I might go and say, right, first off, I need to figure out the foundations, or let's say identify foundations for Azure Governance episode, create script for Azure Governance episode, create the branding for Azure Governance episode, for example. So we'd create those three different items, and that's fine. We've had checkboxes in GitHub Issues for a while now, but check this out. On the right hand side, you can see that I have this option to convert to an issue. So I can go ahead, each of these individual items, convert them to an issue, and now they are just issues in my cloudwithchris.com repository. If I just go and look at my issues, you can see here they have just been created, which is awesome because now you can break down those big tasks into more granular tasks. And the beauty of that, right, is as we start closing those, and notice it's tracked in number 8 as well, so I can easily jump back to the top and see, okay, this issue is closed, great. Jump back in, close this one down here as well. So it's a really nice experience actually that you see coming together in terms of getting this granularity of tasks and how they bubble up into these wider tasks as well. The other thing which I have just enabled on Cloud with Chris is the new YAML-based GitHub issue forms as well. So previously you had markdown forms, so you could have different templates and then it was up to the end user to fill in the template correctly. Whereas now, in this YAML-driven approach, you can see I have different text boxes that I have to go and fill. So new blog post idea. Yeah, we'll keep that. submit that as an issue. And you can see there's a default label already selected. Again, this has all been pre-configured in that template that I've set up. If I create a new issue here, you can see that is now created and rendered nicely into the issue. And the way that works, all publicly documented. If you go into .github, go into the, not workflows, I'm so used to going to workflows, issue_template. You can see I've got one here for blog, one here for episode, and that is how you then go and configure the template then and what that looks like. And I didn't know this actually, that it actually renders the view in the GitHub page here as well. So that's actually pretty neat. That's a pretty nice feature here as well. So this is actually available on all open repositories, I believe, as well as the all public repositories, I should say, as well as the converting to issues, those checkbox lists as well. So those are two great features. The GitHub projects iteration that you've seen there from a little bit earlier is not yet publicly available. It's in a public beta, which is why I can talk about it. You can see, for example, over here, there's public documentation on it as well. So if you're not quite lucky enough to be on the beta yet, you can go and check out the documentation, get a feel for how everything's working as well. But I'm really impressed with it. I'm a big fan. I'm going to keep creating more of these different views and figuring out what different boards and tables and different views work for me. And I'm sure I'll stumble upon some more, because right now I found a few that do work for me. You know, this tabular view based on my backlog, the different pieces which are in progress right now, so which are my spinning plates, the different stages of my entire backlog, and seeing that visually, etc. So really, really excited about this and what's to come here as well. And that's it for this weekly vlog, folks. So let's jump back and start wrapping things up here. So, hope you've enjoyed this one, and we eventually got things going, of course. So, you know the deal. If you've liked this content today, please go ahead, hit the like button, hit subscribe, please hit that notification bell. And of course, you may have been watching this on a number of different platforms. Twitch, Twitter, not Periscope anymore, apparently, as I just found out. YouTube, LinkedIn as well, many different platforms. So please do go ahead, take a look at any of those. If you're following, awesome, thank you. Otherwise, you might be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or cloudwithchris.com as well. But otherwise, folks, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I'll catch you in a live stream very soon. Bye for now.